Boy, he came in.
He'll be here.
Yes.
Oh, there's Heather. Okay. I don't see her, but she's on the list.
All right, you settle in there and we are starting the meeting at 7:01. Okay. Do we have any public comments? You're the only public we have.
Well, no, Rebecca Phil is here too. Rebecca Phil.
Oh, Rebecca.
Listening. I'm cooking dinner and listening. As
Okay.
your neighbor support, Marianne. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, okay. Is there anyone who has any public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to the minutes. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes of November 12th? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There was one change from what was sent out, that Stephen,
He's good.
I'm grateful always.
I read them, but I didn't find it.
Okay.
Sharp eyes.
All right. So the motion has been approved and seconded, so roll call vote, please.
Snell is I.
Down the side. Me, I'm on next, I abstain, Foster abstain, I wasn't here. You were approving minutes?
Yes.
Cool eye.
Big side.
Small side. Boyle, aye. All right, those minutes have been approved. We don't have any other outstanding minutes, do we?
Nope,
Great.
that I know of.
All right, so then let's go on to reviewing the MVP grant. And Mary Ann, would you like to give a little
Sure.
history on this?
Yes.
And then Dominic, we're gonna lean on you to explain this, solar, information.
Sure.
Right.
Thanks.
Becky, under the direction of the select board, applied for a municipal vulnerability program grant. It's a state grant for, climate, for towns to have, and cities to have to do climate resiliency projects. The town had previously identified that, that the town needed, infrastructure for vulnerable populations, senior citizens, families with young children, during times of climate crisis. And the library can serve as, not as a shelter, but as a resiliency center, during those, times. So the grant will cover most of the cost of the solar panels, and the grant that Becky applied for was for a Ford Lightning pickup truck, which is an electric pickup truck that can be used to power buildings. But the Ford Lightning truck isn't gonna work for this project because it doesn't have the type of power that's needed. So I went back to the MVP folks and I asked them, I asked them if they would pay for a generator, and they said no, because they're not paying for anything that uses fossil fuels, but they will pay for, we had priced out the amount of battery power that we could get for the same price as the truck, and it really wasn't very much, but they're willing to give us more money so that we can get a day's worth of battery power. So the 8 hours, 8 hours,
8 hours.
yes. So we have to, put together a whole proposal, but they're very open to the idea. They want us to have a backup power source. That's their goal. So, so to get enough battery power to get 8 hours of battery power, it's gonna cost $136,000, and the grant The pickup truck was $74,000. Now, there are some infrastructure and some other and some design implications. So the.
But this is, excuse me, this $136,000 is only for
The battery,
It's
the battery and
It's
the,
not for the solar panels.
right, they're
That's
also
different.
paying for the solar
They're
panels,
also.
but that's
that-
about
I want people to
$150,000.
Realize that.
Right, and we have to pay 10% of the cost. We have to match their grant with 10% of the cost of what we're paying for.
So they're paying for 90% of the
Right,
batteries, then
yes.
that's the more money they're getting?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they're paying for 90% of, like, the solar panels, the battery, the infrastructure to install the batteries, and make the batteries work. So
And just for clarity, who is the funding unit?
the state of Massachusetts,
Okay.
and it's, through the MVP, the Municipal Vulnerability Program, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so, so we were required by code to have a cement pad with conduit in it for a battery. So, but that pad will have to be bigger than the one that's already specified. That seems achievable, and so there might be some electrical design, some civil design, some architect design, and then we'll have to get get prices for installing all of these different things. This is all gonna be an add-on, right? So Dominic, I think this is where
Dale has a question.
okay, Yeah.
So this $136,000, this is the cost of the batteries without the structure?
it's, well, this is the batteries housed, they come housed in their own little,
Oh, so
Thanks.
it's
Yes.
complete.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
complete thing.
It's the
Right, but we
complete thing.
need, but the cement pad, we already
Needs-
had a pad, we need to make it bigger.
Okay,
We already have a
But-
conduit.
but we're not building anything.
No, we're not building anything.
Okay.
Okay,
know how long these batteries last, like
Oh, yeah.
10 years?
we don't know, Dominic? we're
No,
gonna ask-
that's a very good question, which
Okay.
I don't have an answer to, but I can definitely ask that. The
Okay.
longevity and service life of those for sure.
Right,
I'll get that to you
Okay.
guys when I can.
okay. Andrea, you have a question? You're muted.
Muted still. There we go. So Neil and Roger, when you're looking at this grant, so technically it constitutes local funding, right? Because it's part of your local funding, but you can't double dip. So it can't overlap. So if there is any eligible cost there, that's a conversation that we have to have so that it's not, our grant isn't covering what their grant is covering, if that makes sense.
If there are eligible costs there, would you cover the 10% that we have to put into to match this grant?
So that would
there-
be the 10%, yes, would be the eligible cost. Yeah.
Okay. It's good.
So then they would cover 75%.
5% of the
Of
10%.
the 10%,
Yes.
Got it.
meaning
We'll
we
take
get
it.
2.5%.
Yeah, we'll take
And
it.
then we're thinking of this, Andrea, as a little bit of insurance. So that if we go over $6 million, we're not like immediately having to run to the board and ask for money.
Right.
Yes.
And I do want to say that's another conversation too. So if we think that it's creeping up, we need to let the board know as soon as possible so that we can appropriate that funding.
But maybe this is just a way, like, because the solar panels are an eligible cost.
Yes.
And if we're paying for most of the solar panels with other funding, then it frees up some of your money for other eligible costs. So
Yes, exactly. Great. Thank you.
everybody involved.
We love paperwork.
We love paperwork. Yeah,
Yes.
So my understanding then is that we already have numbers in the budget for solar panels.
yes,
And now we're gonna be able to essentially subtract that out or reduce it.
Reduce it.
right,
We're not
Right.
gonna subtract it out, we're gonna reduce it substantially.
right.
Yeah.
From, yes, yeah. Yeah,
But we have to purchase first and they will reimburse us.
right.
Yeah, I was wondering, how's the timing of the money work in relationship to our construction contingency?
Well,
They're gonna reduce our construction till after the project, when money comes back again?
well, even, and so the town is, so we have to fully fund the project and the MDLC doesn't give us all the money until after the project is complete. They've given us quite a bit already and they'll give us more money in the next fiscal year. Or in this fiscal year, sometime they're gonna give us more money. And then the final payment they give after the project is complete, and we have to fund that up front. And we do that through short-term borrowing, and then we pay it back. And the
So all of
accountant,
this
the
will be the
treasurer
same.
does that, so it'll be the same.
Yes.
So we're gonna hold our construction contingency. Hold it down now.
Yes,
Yeah, you go short term, finally, yes, we would be.
right,
Is that what we're saying?
yes. Okay,
So we have
So,
about 1.7, it's 1.731 around there. That comes to you this fiscal year. And then next fiscal year, we have around 133,000. Those are rough
okay,
rounded numbers.
I think we had solar panels in the truck, in the pad, budgeted. Covered by us, covered by NBLC in different ways.
We didn't
no,
have the
not the
truck.
truck,
The truck was not something that we had. The truck
It's part of the project, though, we were.
No,
No,
no, it never was. It was only part of the MVP grant proposal, and they were very keen on having this truck, but this truck really.
Didn't work.
it-
So we had the solar panels and
Right.
some of the other stuff, and not
Right.
the truck.
Yeah, right.
right,
And that was gonna be paid in a variety of ways, but it was in the budget.
Right.
Now we have this new grant paying
Right.
for the solar panels and the battery, and we're
Right.
paying a section of that.
right,
And that will, I think, end up reducing NBLC's portion and our portion.
right,
I think there are other
Right.
budget things, but am I right so far?
yes,
Even with the new batteries, because of this grant, our
right,
total cost.
Right.
Yes, but
yes,
it'll reduce the portion that NBLC puts towards the solar panels, not towards the whole project.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
just let's be clear on that.
Right. Yeah, that's a street item.
right.
Yes,
It'll help us. Like, if we have money to buy furniture and do landscaping, because we still are short. You know, like without this, because this grant pays for 90% of the solar panels. And then the MBLC will pay for 75% of the other 10%. Someone's gonna help me with the math when I'm doing the, warrants to town hall for this, because it's gonna come out of different accounts.
I'll be there, dear, I'll be there.
Yes, all right. So it'll help us with not going over that $6 million, which I don't think we're going to, that the MBLC has already given us. It'll help us have a little bit of extra money that we don't have now. It's a game,
Excellent.
I think, yeah, for us,
Well, it's a numbers game.
yes, but we come out ahead. Andrea?
I have another question, and maybe Neil can answer this. Have you talked about interconnection with the MVP folks? Neil has firsthand experience with this on Gloucester, but the interconnection piece has been, gets delayed oftentimes. So I just wanted to know if that is being taken into account and how will that be handled?
Are you asking with regard to the solar panels and how and tying into the grid?
Yes.
Okay. So I will actually defer to Dominic and I will ask him if that discussion was had with, I think it's Bala and the design group in their design coordination meetings with Grid.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. To my memory, I don't have an answer for you. My high-level understanding was that the building was going to get commissioned. The PV were already going to be on the roof, months before the completion of the project, and therefore allow a suitable time frame to be ready for use on open day. But I'm not sure of that. That was my understanding. I'll get confirmation of that. Andrea, that is obviously coming from experience on other projects where there was a delay there between the two.
Yes.
So I'll ask that question specifically. We also have Solar Design, or our PV consultants that have designed the PV system and the battery ready pad. So we have conduit and a concrete pad at the moment. I'm now tasked with getting exact pricing with them and also Bala to make sure the interface of the building is suitable for an increased battery system. We would quadruple what we are ready for with the current scope of work. So that would increase the concrete slab. And we're just confirming conduits, whether you can daisy chain those at the batteries with the inverter, or how that works, and then make sure that everything at the building is good to go for a larger battery. Ampage seems to be right. So initial information from Solar Design is that our system in the building, in the electrical room, is ready to receive, to be able to play with these additional batteries. So we are prepped and ready, or at least I'm prepping my consultants to get documentation together for a change order request. That's kind of high level. That 130 that Marianne was talking about does include the 4 lithium batteries and their enclosures, an inverter, and also roll-up ready device. We will still be able to have a roll-up generator to the building. So that's good to know as well. So there are multiple elements that are already incorporated in that 130 and change. But in addition to that, the battery pad needs to be increased. I think that's minor, a few $1,000s for potentially for additional concrete. And I'm still waiting to hear back from Bala. But to your point, Andrea, I'll find out information to see what that lag time might be and how that might affect the project.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this? So where we stand right now is, Dominic, you're getting the pricing and everything for all of this. And then we go back to the MVP folks for approval.
Well, then we ask the contractor for pricing, right?
Right.
Dominic?
Yeah. So I'll
And-
submit documentation for the contractor to price. That's correct.
To get a price,
Right.
and then yes, then I'll go back to MVP for approval. And then he approves it, then we'll, then we move forward.
Right.
So, but before we went any further, I thought this committee, this body should make a decision about whether or not we pursue this.
Yes,
I
definitely.
mean,
want to
there
go.
really isn't a downside to this anywhere, is there?
No.
No, I mean, you don't see a downside? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So do I hear a motion to move forward with this plan?
Or move that we Do we need to do more than that? Do we need to approve spending? Budget changes?
Not, no,
Not yet?
because we don't.
No,
have
just
numbers.
move forward to-
We don't have any numbers
On the
yet. and
MPV
we do
grant.
the change order.
The project does,
Jeff,
yes,
The
Yeah.
change order approvals.
right,
Once we get.
Yes, yes, but it's your,
right,
yes.
okay,
So, no, we do not need to do it by numbers. We have numbers here roughly.
So we're basically approving the concept and we'll do more later. Then I so move.
Do I?
Second,
Okay.
Antonellis, aye.
down the
Wait
side.
a minute, do we have any more comments or questions? Moving ahead, all right.
Sorry, Antonellis, aye.
Down the side.
Foster, aye.
Pool eye.
Aye. Moss eye.
Practical.
Vallejo, aye.
Okay.
Right, Dominic, on the bottom of the information about the battery price,
Hmm.
there was all the information about incentives.
Yeah.
Are those extra incentives that we can,
Yes, and I meant to add that to the conversation as well. So if you were to install batteries, we do qualify for additional incentives, which would be great. And I'm getting I have some additional questions on the minutia of that as to how the fact that you then have on-site storage allows you to go for MA Smart program incentives, and they're
we lost
broken down.
Okay, there you are.
Could you say that last sentence again? We lost you.
Oh, okay. I'm still getting some answers to minutia of these incentives as to how it exactly applies. There's kind of a lot of nuance to each of these. But the federal ITC incentive would be a substantial contribution from my understanding of what we're getting from solar design, potentially up to 40,000 one time payment. There is an MA Smart program, which is broken up into a couple of different incentives, and that would reap, you would be able to gain certain dollar amounts for the amount of electricity that N-Grid could take from your batteries. So it's additional electricity that you generate that you do not need, you can then sell back to the grid effectively. What those rates are, I'm still trying to work out, and just need some answers from Solar Design to help us out with that. There was a critical component to the incentive too from MA Smart program, because they would only pay for 6 hours of our full capacity of 8 hours. So each battery has 2 point something hours of storage, and we're going to quadruple that. And we can only claim 6 hours of that for, that's one of those small little components to the MA Smart, the incentive 2. Incentive 3, I also wanted some explanation on, what we can actually see. But as I understand it, the fact that we will have on-site storage is going to allow you to, or it qualifies you to now go for these, and that'll be done by the town. So once we kind of get this rolling, I think the next step would be to apply for these. And I believe you need to apply within a year that they're going to be installed, and you go from there. So another plus, I think, for going for this.
Calendar year or fiscal year?
That would, I think it's calendar.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Anything else to do with the MVP grant? Jeff?
Think this through. So if energy is going into the batteries, we're then not putting energy back into the grid. Right?
Right,
So we don't get as much money back from the electric company
But we can only put so much into the batteries, and once we put it into the battery, then we can
Yeah, right,
send
Right.
it to the grid.
so, but because we had batteries, we'll put less into the grid. Do we lose energy because we have batteries? While the energy's not being used by the batteries, do they leave in a sense?
I
Do
don't
we
know.
lose capacity for storage? Is that the question?
It's like if the battery is fully charged
Yep.
and it sits there like in the summer, does it drain just because it's sitting there
Yeah, I
and we're
mean,
not using
instead
it?
of being at 100% in July. In August, is it a 98% because it lost 2% just for fun?
I think it would be continuously charging, and I think National Grid could draw from the batteries. That's one of these incentive
Well,
programs.
we wouldn't want National Grid to draw from the batteries in the event that we need it.
And does any of this affect our net solar neutral?
No, not as I understand it.
That's what interconnection is, though. The interconnection is, it brings you into the grid and they will, like I have solar on my house and they pull from my solar on peak days when I've reached the capacity. They take the extra energy because I don't have battery backup, but they take the extra energy and they put it toward the grid.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like.
And then I get a
battery
check each month from them.
glass is full, then the extra goes.
But once the
And
glass,
sometimes it evaporates, you have to fill it up a
you
little
have to
bit.
fill it up a
Right.
little bit
And then it
more,
goes into.
and then it'll go to the grid. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I also just want to make sure we're screwing ourselves.
Right,
Because I don't think-
Yeah, I don't.
that we're
I
not
don't
losing
think-
revenue.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and I don't think we are. Okay. But we're gonna keep doing research and get pricing and make sure it's all gonna work. And,
Mhm.
and then we'll keep moving on this. Okay,
Great,
all right.
all right.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Dominic.
Yes,
for
thanks,
the
Dominic.
extra
Thanks,
work
everybody.
that
For working on this. All right, we are on to our project update. Which would you like to do first, the project or the budget? I think we'll go with the project.
Okay, so why doesn't Roger give us a project update?
Roger, give us the project update.
Or
please.
Neil? Okay,
Or Neil.
Sure. So far as through November, they completed the foundations and the floor slab. They've started since Thanksgiving, started beginning with the wall framing. And that's going to go on for the next 6 to 8 weeks or so. Site work has paused for the winter, essentially. They've completed a good portion of the storm drainage system, the retention basins. They've been not quite hydro-seeded, but protected from erosion for the winter.
What
Is
did
there a
they
question?
do?
How did they protect the site?
You mean for the basins?
Mhm.
Yes, the not seeded, but with a protective coating that will prevent from any erosion, washout.
they sprayed the green stuff.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's great.
It's the sticky stuff.
Yes.
But minus the seeds.
Yeah,
Right,
Is that effective?
we'll find out.
so far.
So far, it's been that and covered in snow. So continue with framing for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then we'll start with the exterior envelope. We've had materials arrive on the site. The few pieces of structural steel beams and lintels have arrived today. Still
Well, how
progressing
far-
essentially on the
how far
schedule. The building is not as, didn't pick up the weeks that they thought they would. Still on track for an end date. It hasn't changed. It's just that the building portion has moved a little bit.
So Penny,
This pretty weak.
Penny,
How many weeks behind the proposed schedule are they?
I think things have shifted about 2 weeks with the framing starting a little later and maybe potentially taking a little longer. But hasn't changed the end date, and I think they accomplished some more of the site work with the storm drainage systems in the fall. So that's less that needs to be done in the spring.
And you're happy?
Overall, it'd be nice if they picked up the speed a little more so you could see things, but it's starting to progress.
Penny, we're always happy.
I can tell by your face.
Roger.
We just don't
Roger.
always show it.
That's a good question.
Roger, how many guys are on the framing crew?
They've had 3 and 4. Once they start working on other portions around the building, they'll increase their workforce.
But we're waiting on the glue lamp. Oh, mid-January, is that correct?
That's their potentially estimated delivery date for the glue lamp, so they'll be
The west wall can't be worked on until then.
in pieces, but they're working on the east wall. They'll have the center bearing wall, and then pieces of the west wall, which has a lot more of the glue lamps.
Lamps have to sit on.
As someone who's not that familiar with construction, so they put up the walls and then the framing for the roof goes on after that, is that right? And then they do they close up the exterior before
Close up the
they?
exterior. We'll have the plywood sheathing. The AVB barrier will go next. They'll essentially have the underlayment on the roof, even though we won't have the metal roofing panels till after that.
I think Mark said yesterday that they expect to have it closed in by somewhere between mid-February and mid-March.
Or,
Yeah, that's good.
Right? That's what he said.
Yeah, I think that's what structure framing finished by the end of January, and then they'll have the AVB and the windows and such to put in after that.
We'll be pushing on them harder to make the building dry enough that they can proceed with the rough-ins in advance. They're probably giving us the dates, the lead times associated with the windows and everything else. But if need be, we can temp in the windows and push them to start the rough-ins earlier.
When you say temp in the windows, you mean putting plastic on them to?
Yep,
and
in simplistic terms, yes.
and why does it need to be dry? What is-
Cause they won't let you put ductwork and wiring in a building that's continually being wet.
I see, okay, thank you.
Has to be dry. Yeah. And sometimes won't even allow plastic on the window. We'll see.
It's usually what they'll use now is they'll use a flame retardant PVC membrane.
So between Roger, Neil, and Jeff, who have been on site, do we have any issues that we're worried about?
The only issue, and it's not something to worry about yet, is the falling of the slab.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
You noticed yesterday that there's pockets of the slab that are concrete slab that are loose. I mean, loose,
called spalding, you said?
falling.
Spalling, little
Pops.
pops.
like little blisters,
Right,
SPALLING.
And Dominic, you're reviewing that with the,
With structural engineer, yeah. I don't have any concerns that it is structural, but we're just making sure. So, because it's a structural element, LeMessurier is currently reviewing that. I think the biggest concern, and I was talking to Jeff and Roger about this yesterday, is the level of flatness that we need, or finish of that concrete as it relates to the resilient flooring. The resilient flooring has a very specific requirement for a level of finish, so that when you put the resilient flooring in, you won't be able to see any of those imperfections underneath. They will kind of read through if you leave it as is. So the contractor owns this, so they'll need to make some corrective work depending on how things fall out. I was only able to see it in wet conditions. They were squeegeeing snow and water off the slab yesterday. So yes, it was apparent in multiple locations. It didn't look severe, but they do need to repair it. So we're kind of currently working through making sure that happens. So, yeah.
It's not, Dominic, it's not uncommon under resilient flooring that you would do a skim coat anyway.
Exactly. That's right.
To sort of bring the slab into tolerance with what's required for doing it. So there's nothing too earth shattering here, as long as the spalling doesn't go deep into the slab.
Yeah.
And Penny, to your earlier question, as anytime somebody asks me what my concern is in December, it's always going to be the severity of the winter. If we have a really, really bad winter, then schedule is going to be an issue. If we have a relatively mild winter and they can work through, then everything should be fine for the summer. But that's where I would say we are at this point. Any year, any project in December, the biggest concern is always the weather.
Yep.
Anything else people want to bring up? Okay, let's move on to the budget update then. Mary Ann, you sent something out.
yeah, so I sent the budget, from last month. And so the total budget, so you all got the budget in your email early today. Neil has the budget, and Andrea and Heather, did I send it to you? No. So anyway, the total budget is estimated to cost $8,983,000. And in the budget, and Neil, it's a document you sent last month, because there hasn't been an update since then.
We have not yet received invoices for November.
Right.
I have our bill, Dominic, don't panic, I have your bill. And
Right.
we're waiting
Right.
for the contractor's invoice to get finalized.
Right, so I just used last month's budget. And so you can see what is spent on there. I don't have it in front of me. But so the thing that I wanted to say was that when we signed the contract with the contractor in June, we had $8,867,000, $16,000, 300, whatever. It's 8,867,316. Somebody can say what that is in dollars. 8,867,316. $1,316. I can say it.
Good job.
All right,
Good.
so we still have that $115,000 shortfall. The MVP grant's gonna help with that. And then in the budget, there's $125,000 budgeted for furniture and equipment. I'm assuming falls in that budget, because I didn't see it anywhere else. And the first shelving quote we received, is $130,000, almost $131,000. We have asked for another shelving quote, and so, so those were the thoughts I had on the budget. And then, does anybody else have questions about the budget? Did you look through it and have questions?
Yeah, that's good.
I looked through it, I have no question.
Okay, okay,
So,
They only, again, like you said, they only put in here, we won't put in here. Payment application too, not just for the sand. It has.
right. So we'll have, once that is reconciled, then Neil will send us a payment letter. And then Neil will do another budget update, because that's his document. And then periodically, I get, expenditure reports from the town accountant, and we go through and make sure that, that the spreadsheet that I'm having matches what the town accountant has, and Neil makes sure that his free spreadsheet matches what the town accountant has. So that we're just keeping track as the money is spent.
so I was looking at this, and according to what you provided, Mary Ann, it says there have been no change orders. I thought there had been already.
No, they have bills.
Oh, they haven't billed us.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, so let's see, so things that, because the way that they do change orders in bid docs
Mhm.
is they do it, they combine them all, they can combine up to 10 small changes into one change order, so they just want to keep accumulating that.
Okay.
So we're gonna have the change order for the HVAC, which
Right.
we've already discussed, for closing the well at the front of the site, which is about $3,000. There's gonna be a credit for the water filtration system, because it's no longer recommended. And then did we have a number on that? Was that about $3,000? Or did I,
No, it's about $1,500.
1,500? Okay, so that's gonna be a credit.
Credit for plumbing fixtures.
And then, right, there's so I discovered that, somebody had specified automatic faucets, when, so probably that person had just never met me before.
Well,
I didn't know me well, and so I made an executive decision that we weren't having automatic faucets, because I wanted faucets that worked. So the faucets that worked are less expensive, so we're getting the credit for those.
There's
So-
an additional add for a beam that is wrong size.
Right,
Um,
okay.
there's Nothing else out there.
Was there another
Oh,
thing other than the
we don't
beam?
have a number yet for the footings.
Right.
Lowering the footings,
Right,
what
Right.
happened to the footings?
they needed to lower the bottom of the footings 2 inches.
but we don't have a number for that yet.
So does that cost us less or more or less?
More,
More complicated.
and for more, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's not, I don't think it's an unusual list.
That was to get the overall height up.
There is a discrepancy between footing elevation, architectural, versus the structure.
I can, Mary Ann, I'll just say that we're at this point of construction, there are 7 potential change order items that have been identified in bid docs. The total value of all of those changes is just a little over $100,000, of which $85,000 is the difference in the filed subbidder for the HVAC. So all things totaled, we're dealing with about $20,000 of changes at this point in time, which I think is a good place to be.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
yep, it is.
Great.
Especially early.
Anything else on the budget? Okay, is there anything else? Kenny, you had something you would like to bring forward?
Well, I have, I'll just give some updates, on behalf of the Friends of the Library. And I'll start with Giving Day, which was December 3rd. As of right now,
39,100.
yeah, 39,100. 135 donors. We'd love to get to 40,000 by the end of December.
Okay,
So just tuck that
Yep.
in your box.
give early, give often.
But yeah, the turkey trot was November 23rd. We had 212 people registered for the event. It was a cold, rainy day, but people still had a good time.
Absolutely.
And we raised over $10,000 in sponsorships, which is great because this is money that comes from outside of our town.
Yeah.
You know, many local businesses
Yeah.
gave money, and that's a
Right.
wonderful thing, and we're very grateful for that.
Yep.
And we raised over $18,000.
Right. Wow.
So that's fabulous.
Wow.
And then the last thing is the Buy a Paper fundraiser, and I know I brought this up at our last meeting, but I'm gonna ask again if this group would like to buy a paper, and it would be with everyone contributed $22, to commemorate our role in the construction of this building. The deadline is January 10th.
Thank you for extending the deadline.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't, I didn't know what the deadline was.
How many have you gotten?
32.
Plus, there's some that are on paper.
So it's dropping on.
Exactly.
About what. to
Right.
write. So-
Right.
Right, in fact, I think the only person here that's actually done it is you. You and Weezy have done yours. Of the people that are gonna do them, because I can't decide,
I can't figure
Well,
out what to
can't
say.
figure out what
It
to
I think we
say.
should have a paver
It's a tough.
deciding
Yeah, right.
day.
Right, yeah.
Community.
Yeah, have a feel.
I'm glad that it's until January, because now I can wait till my family's all together.
Yes.
We can argue about it in person.
Yes, yes, yeah, so it's.
So the question though is, does this committee want to pitch in $22 each to have a paper that commemorates our work?
Yes. Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And who is our wordsmith? among
That's
this
the big
group?
question.
our wordsmith. Oh,
No,
wait a
I-
minute, Molly's a librarian.
So is Mary Ann.
No, but she's got a lot on her plate.
For this, yes.
Yes.
For this.
Well, perhaps there can be a discussion between you two.
That would be
You can
great.
Throw something out. I know we can't really, I mean, can we discuss this outside of the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is
Nothing
a
else to
meeting.
do.
Yeah, how we're gonna,
Yeah.
how we're gonna actually do the paying
Yeah.
portion.
Well, the paying, everybody can just make their payment online.
I'll buy the paper, and I don't think that's easier than everybody.
And we
paying
can pay you.
Yeah.
And we can pay you either
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
whatever,
I mean,
whatever you're
Yeah.
comfortable with.
It's
Okay.
fine.
All right,
Okay,
okay.
We get
Take
3
that.
lines, 30 characters.
I am old school.
I'm just kidding.
I take,
Okay.
quarters and.
Okay, you wanna see the green stuff. Okay.
All
And
right.
I do just want to say thank you to Neil for buying the paper. I love, put on your paper.
Is it inspirational? Can we copy it?
Well, I could read it to you.
Yeah.
Are there any good ones that we can steal?
I've asked Mary Ann to compile a list of what people have said. Taking out any personal things, so you don't know who it is, to help some of us who are struggling. Neil, may I read what you put on the paper?
Yeah, I assume it's not the one that says construction monitoring services.
It says, never doubt a small group of committed people can complete a successful project. Oh.
Great.
And that's why we're gonna keep you around a little longer here.
There you go.
Can do it.
I wasn't sure if you would go through that. I thought it might be a little too cheeky.
No.
No way.
I mean, I think we feel the same way sometimes.
Yes.
Although sometimes, no, we don't have doubt in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that this town of 1,700 people raised $50,000 in like a week
Yeah.
is amazing.
Or,
That's raised over 600,000.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
bigger number.
Yes.
It blows my mind.
It is.
Yes.
Because we're, we're a small, not very well
Yeah.
town.
Under
So,
2,000.
No, I mean, you're far exceeding my fundraising, which is fine because I'm not trying to develop a building. It's also, I mean, it's very impressive.
And people stick with it, it's, and what's so interesting is, some people are ordering 2 papers,
Some people are getting papers for Christmas.
I think I got a paper for Christmas. So, from my son, who's wonderful. So, yes. And they're really quite moving. It's gonna be, quite moving, walking up that walkway when they first go in, so.
We're gonna need more than 75.
Oh, definitely, yeah, but that's fine,
And
yeah.
the information about the engraving
What do you
that
mean?
you got, that they're going to engrave Don's papers.
Yes, they're gonna engrave Dawn's papers.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah,
we don't have to order
Right.
papers specially.
yes.
Right,
So, yeah.
right.
Yes. Yes,
That's
and
great.
then so Dawn put in the order, it takes like 8 weeks to make the papers. So that's why January 10th is our deadline. I did not just say January 15th, nobody heard me say that.
No,
So,
January 10th.
January 10th is our deadline, so, okay. So, all right,
What's the limit on number of letters?
30 characters for 3 lines.
3 lines.
And spaces count.
And spaces.
Yeah.
and spaces and
blanks
punctuation,
Yeah.
Can you do special characters?
Yes.
Spaces. What?
So I
Special
tried,
characters.
I actually was thinking about this for our group. I don't think we can get all of our names.
okay, but do we need them to stay while we're
No.
talking
Yeah.
about papers?
No, we don't.
So do any of you have questions or comments for us? No,
No,
okay,
okay.
all right,
So we can close the meeting because this is just talking about.
we're
our
just gonna talk
personal
about papers,
Right.
probably for a
So
half
do I
hour.
hear a motion to adjourn?
I second.
Antonella's on.
Down the side.
Australia.
Pool eye.
Moss eye.
Layout aye, the meeting is adjourned at 7:54.
Oh.
Everyone have lovely holidays.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You as
Thanks,
well.
Elaine.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right,
See you next year.
all right.